Alright, this is a follow-up to a video that I did for Curtis Aslan and Madison Roseberry with regards to how I write music and how I use string arrangements as the foundation of my songs. So last video I demonstrated to them how I would write string parts, and I often use a solo cello section as the bass root progression for the most part, and I'll add strings later on, like violin or viola, to accent and help me solidify some note selection for melody. And this is what I originally had. So here, it was something like this. I changed the voices since then. No, Jesus, I'm sorry. Let me just doing this all backwards right now. So this is what I had before, just the strings. Very basic note selection, very tried and true bass root progression. You know, something just to give me an idea. Some, you want to start simple, and you want to like kind of, start with something that is tested and proved to work. So that's a very basic root progression. I won't go into the super details because I talked about that in the previous video. So from that, I decided to write a drum part. I decided to write bass, guitar, and added a little octave lead just to give it some life. So this is the first incarnation. I put this together in about maybe a half an hour. Just like, I just threw something together. This is the first thing that was directly inspired by that original string progression. This is what we got. So that's what I got. That was the first thing that I decided to throw together for that part. And now it's taken on a different life. I decided today I want to try something a little different with it. I decided to change the key, and instead of having all the main downbeat come in on the 1, it's going to come in on the 4 and. So it's coming on the 7th, 8th of the previous bar to give it a different swing. So this is what I have now. I've changed the key from E minor to B minor, and I've played it on different guitars, so you're going to hear a difference in the guitar tone as well. This portion here was all played on my Ibanez with Ragnaroks. I have this is the root rhythm, bridge pickup, the one below it here. This is the split coil of the same bridge pickup, and this lead was tracked obviously with the neck. Over here, this rhythm is the Aftermath. This rhythm is a War Pig. Both bridges full humbuckered, and this is a Holy Diver split coil neck. So let's listen to this real quick. So, you can probably hear it. The lead is definitely different. Instead of starting on the root major and then doing a walk up with octaves, I'm starting on the root minor and doing a walk up. I'm starting on the root major and octave up. But they both kind of settle on the relative fifth to the minor, which is the relative third to the major, because I really like that note. This octave lead, because of where it is positionally on a guitar tuned to D standard, or I guess you can also do B standard, I decided to change it because it feels better on the guitar, and it's more reminiscent of the original melody that I had written on viola, and that was something I was really, really happy with, and I wanted to emulate more, and it was harder for me to emulate that on E minor because of where you would be positionally. But the chord progression is pretty much the same in terms of root progression. It's 1, 7, and then that slow, or rather quick walk up of 4, 5 into 6, and then drops to the relative majors with the third. But you'll see here, I have it on the bass here. The cursor's on the round screen. So this is the 1, 1, 7, 4, 5, 6, relative major 3, and then jump up to the 7 before going back to the 1. And as you can see here, these tiny little notes, they're actually coming in on the 4 and as opposed to, they're all coming on the 4 and as opposed to the 1, which is where that empty space right next to it. So on both parts, where the bass plays the 7 going back into the 1, I'm actually doing something a little different on guitar. I'm playing I'm playing the relative major with it, the third, but instead of playing a 7, I'm playing a 7 with a 5th in the bass. So the guitar is actually descending while the bass is ascending in terms of notation. And one thing to note here, obviously, because once again, positionally, and depending on the key you're playing, and you're going to be playing a different progression in different keys in different ways. So over here on bass, going from the 6, it goes up into a higher third, so and then drops to the 7 again. Whereas over in B minor, it goes from the 6th and drops to a lower third before going back up into the 7th. That'll carry you into the 1. So, they're, like, on paper, if you look at these things, they're relatively the same part, but they're played and executed wildly differently and arranged wildly differently. And I think that's the strength of starting out small and going from big, watching the part develop and evolve on its own, and allowing a life to come to it naturally, because you'll come up with things that don't sound anything like what you had before. Like that original string part was just two string parts. It was in 120 beats per minute, and it was in E minor, and it came in on the 1 with complete phase lock, because I didn't count for natural string playing, which would be kind of out of phase, deliberately so. And now we have this part here in a completely different key over here. This is the final part, this whole thing right here. It's in a completely different key. I moved it from E minor to B minor. I bumped it from 120 beats per minute to 174. I have it come in on the 4 and, or the 7th, 8th, to give it a bit of a swing, and it's wild what you can do. And it's really, I think it's one of the coolest things about starting out small but broad, is you can end up ultimately taking a part that you write and like in a completely different direction than you initially anticipated. To be completely honest, full disclosure, I decided to switch this to 174 because I like that beat progression, but I also decided to switch it to B minor and to the 7th, 8th downbeat, because not only do I like that, and not only is it more conducive to playing and emulating that original string lead, I'm actually currently writing a song in this key with that kind of 7/8 downbeat swing, and I really like this chord progression, and I really wanted to do something with it, and I was like, you know what, this will be, if I change the key and I change the swing, it'll fit perfectly in that song. So that's full disclosure, that's why it is the way it is now. But yeah, cool. Hopefully this was informative. Hopefully Curtis and Madison and anyone who else watches this got something out of it, because it was a lot of fun to do. And maybe I'll have a complete song for you by the end of the week. Alright, see ya.